The ultimate point of why we're here today, I would like to invite the resident coordinator of the United Nations office in Guyana, Honorable Jean Kamau, and our sectoral and ministerial representative for everything United Nations, Honorable Minister of Parliamentary Affairs and Governance, Honorable Gail Teixeira, to join us at the signing table to sign the Declaration of Intent of the United Nations joining the Global Biodiversity Alliance. Ladies. And I must mention two of my role models. Thank you very much, Minister. Thank you very much, President Coordinator. I'm very pleased to say that we started off with humble beginnings. In July of last year, when the Georgetown Declaration was signed, there were 17 members who founded the Global Biodiversity Alliance. I'm pleased to say that today's event will mark the United Nations as the 97th member of the Global Biodiversity Alliance. This means to us that together there is a will to move the dial forward in terms of addressing biodiversity loss. And to hear more about that vision and the strategy that we see moving forward, I have the honor of inviting His Excellency, President Dr. Mohammed Irfan Ali, the vision behind the GBA, to give us brief remarks.
This evening is very special, not only for Guyana, but for all the stakeholders who value the environment, value biodiversity, and really believe in the science behind our own existence in this world. The UN family is very special to Guyana, and of course, the UN family has contributed significantly to the development and advancement of our country. We hope that we will continue to work together with the right data sets and, of course, with the right priorities in advancing the goals of the United Nations and, of course, what we want and will achieve as a country together with you. Humanity is waging a war on nature. This is suicidal. Those were the stark words of Antonio Guterres, warning that biodiversity is collapsing at a rate unprecedented in human history, with up to 1 million species now at risk of extinction. The rapid loss of the world's biodiversity is a direct threat to food security, water systems, public health, and the global economy. It is, in other words, an existential threat to humanity. It is against this sobering global backdrop that I warmly welcome the United Nations to the Global Biodiversity Alliance. The participation of the United Nations is both a natural fit and a powerful endorsement of the work and vision of the Alliance. It is natural because biodiversity protection has become central to the global agenda of the United Nations system. And it is powerful because the presence of the world's foremost multilateral institution elevates the credibility, reach, and impact of this initiative. The United Nations has long stood at the forefront of global efforts to protect the environment and promote sustainable development. From the adoption of the Convention on Biological Diversity to the Sustainable Development Goals, the UN has consistently advanced the principle that humanity's future depends upon living in harmony with nature. Through its agencies, programs, conventions, and international partnerships, the United Nations has helped place biodiversity protection at the central of global policy making. Indeed, one of the UN's most important contributions has been its recognition that biodiversity cannot be treated as an isolated environmental issue. Rather, it is deeply interconnected with economic development, poverty reduction, climate resilience, food production, public health, and social stability. Biodiversity protection must therefore be integrated into agriculture, infrastructure, energy, tourism, urban planning, and national economic policy. This approach aligns directly with the core philosophy of the Global Biodiversity Alliance, which seeks to move biodiversity from the margins of policy into the mainstream of global development decision-making. For this reason, the participation of the United Nations strengthens the institutional depth of the Global Biodiversity Alliance and affirms that this is not merely a regional or thematic initiative, but part of a broader global movement to reshape humanity's relationship with nature. When the United Nations joins this effort, it sends a clear and unmistakable message. The protection of biodiversity is now central to the international agenda. It also lends greater standing and legitimacy to the Global Biodiversity Alliance itself. In a world where environmental commitments are often fragmented across multiple platforms, partnerships such as this help to consolidate effort, avoid duplication, and ensure that global biodiversity action is more coordinated and impactful. The global reach, convening power, technical expertise, and moral authority of the United Nations will significantly enhance the capacity of the Alliance to deliver measurable results. Guyana and the Global Biodiversity Alliance therefore look forward with great anticipation to working closely with the United Nations in advancing this shared mission. Guyana, with its vast and largely intact rainforests, freshwater systems, and rich biological diversity, understands deeply the value of protecting natural capital. Our low-carbon development strategy is built on the recognition that economic progress and environmental stewardship are not competing goals, but mutually reinforcing imperatives. Together, through the Global Biodiversity Alliance, we now have an opportunity to scale international collaboration to a broader global platform, sharing lessons, mobilizing finance, strengthening institutions, advancing scientific cooperation, and empowering the communities who are the true custodians of biodiversity on the ground. The Global Biodiversity Alliance continues to gain significant traction and international endorsement, reflecting a growing recognition that biodiversity loss is one of the defining challenges of our time, equally in urgency to climate change. But much more remains to be done. We therefore use this moment to extend a strong invitation to other international organizations, development partners, multilateral institutions, and sovereign states to join the Global Biodiversity Alliance. The crisis facing biodiversity is too large, too complex, and too interconnected for any single country or institution to address alone. What is required is collective action at a scale never seen before, bringing together governments, international organizations, civil society, indigenous peoples, the private sector, and scientific community in a unified effort. The Global Biodiversity Alliance offers precisely such a platform, one that is inclusive, action-oriented, and grounded in the principle that protecting nature is not only an environmental duty, but an economic and moral imperative. We invite all who are committed to safeguarding the planet's biological heritage to become part of this growing movement. With the United Nations now on board, we take a significant step forward. But we also recognize that this is only the beginning. Let us therefore move forward together with urgency and determination to ensure that the world we pass on to future generations is one where biodiversity is not in decline, but in recovery, not under threat, but thriving. This is a call for all of us. This is what the Alliance calls for: unity of purpose, unity of action. And we are very pleased that some of the very large nations are joining. And also, the smallest of nations are also embracing. We hope that by the time we get to the second summit in the third quarter of this year in Guyana, we will have at least 150 members joining the Global Biodiversity Alliance. This will send a very strong signal, and we're hoping also, now that the United Nations is officially on board, to work with you in maybe launching the Global Biodiversity Oscars Awards, so that we can recognize those in research, indigenous communities, institutions, and countries that are really in the forefront of keeping our planet alive. I thank you, and God bless all of you.
We have here with us today, as I mentioned, the UN Resident Coordinator of Guyana, and I would now like to invite Ms. Jean Kamau to address these proceedings, and then we will move to the other agenda items.
Thank you very much, Program Director Dr. Pradeepa. Excellency, Dr. Mohammed Ifan Ali, President of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, Minister Gil Tashira, Minister of Parliamentary Affairs and Governance, our to-go-to person for the UN. It's really a pleasure to be here. It's an honor and a privilege for me to come today with the UN country team for this prestigious and honorable event today, as we mark the UN in Guyana becoming a signatory to the Global Biodiversity Alliance. Today's ceremony reflects more than a commitment on paper. It demonstrates our shared vision for safeguarding the natural heritage of our planet for present and future generations. Biodiversity is not only a cornerstone of environmental sustainability, but also a fundamental pillar of economic resilience, food security, cultural identity, and human well-being. Excellency, Guyana stands as a global leader in biodiversity conservation. With its vast forests, rich ecosystems, and deep-rooted stewardship by indigenous communities, this country represents one of the world's most important natural assets. Your continued leadership, dedication to preserving these ecosystems is both admirable and essential to the global effort to address climate change and biodiversity loss. The United Nations is proud to stand alongside the government and people of Guyana in this journey. Throughout our collective mandate, we remain committed to supporting national priorities, strengthening institutional capacity, and fostering partnerships that enable effective implementation of global environmental frameworks, such as the Global Biodiversity Alliance that we're here today to sign. This alliance comes at a critical time. Across the world, biodiversity is under unprecedented pressure. The decisions we make today will shape the health of ecosystems, economies, and societies for decades to come. It is therefore imperative that we move from commitment to action with urgency, inclusivity, and innovation. In Guyana, the United Nations system is already working with government, institutions, and stakeholders to support biodiversity conservation through integrated approaches. These include promoting sustainable land use, strengthening environmental governance, supporting community-led conservation, and aligning development pathways with climate and biodiversity goals. We recognize that the success of the Global Biodiversity Alliance in Guyana will depend on strong collaboration across all sectors: government, civil society, private sector, and local communities. The UN will continue to play its role as a trusted partner, providing technical expertise, policy support, and access to global knowledge, global standards, and financial mechanisms. Importantly, we reaffirm the central role of indigenous peoples and local communities, the custodians of Guyana's biodiversity, an issue, Excellency, you have repeated time and time again. Their knowledge, leadership, and stewardship must remain at the heart of conservation efforts. As we mark this milestone today, let us also renew our collective resolve. Let us ensure that commitments translate into tangible action, that partnerships dive deep and real impact and deliver real impact, and that progress is both measurable and inclusive. The United Nations remains steadfast in its support to the government of Guyana in implementing the aspirations, the goal, and the vision of the Global Biodiversity Alliance, working together to protect ecosystems, strengthen resilience, and advance sustainable development for all. In closing, Excellency, colleagues, allow me to congratulate the government and the people of Guyana for this important step forward. Today's signing is not the end of a journey, but the beginning of an even stronger and more coordinated effort to protect one of the most precious resources we have, our clients' biodiversity. Thank you very much, Excellency. With your kind permission, I would just like to ask my colleagues, we've come here as a UN country team, and they want to introduce themselves personally to you. So with your kind permission, I'd just like them to start by introducing them. Okay, please, yeah.
Excellency, Mr. Katie Thompson, United Nations Development Program.
We know by now, but almost
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Nazareno Valente, UNICEF representative.
Good afternoon, Mr. President, Minister, Larissa Pearson, UN Communications.
Good afternoon, Your Excellency,
Afternoon, Dr. Fatula Akin, Technical Advisor for the Subdivision from the Biodiversity Guyana Government Caribbean.
Excellency Minister, my name is David, also from the Resident Coordinator.
Good afternoon, Your Excellency. Good afternoon, Minister.
Good afternoon, Your Excellency, Akili Doris, the United Nations entity for the empowerment of nature.
Good afternoon, Excellency Minister, Colette Medicine, Communications Officer for the United Nations.
Thank you very much, Excellency.
Well, even though I'm not formally a youth anymore, because I know the UN definition for youth is 35 and below, it's very... the clock has stopped at 35. I'm very pleased to share with you our thinking in terms of shaping that component on youth involvement in terms of climate action and biodiversity. We were really excited when Yale University joined with us as one of the founding members of the Global Biodiversity Alliance. What they have offered, and this is a big part of the vision moving forward, is really making the case that a lot of what we need to think about at the professional level, at the decision-making and policy level, really need to start with the science. And to be able to shape policy and decision-making, we need to think like scientists. And that needs to start at the academic level, within schools, at the tertiary level. So what we're looking to do through the Global Biodiversity Alliance, working through academic institutions, really is centered on molding young minds to be the decision makers of the future. I'm really pleased to note we were asked the question before, why do we look out of our region to Yale University as the founding member and not as one of the founding members and not within the region? Well, I'm very pleased to note that the University of the West Indies has also joined a few weeks ago as a member of the Global Biodiversity Alliance, and the University of Guyana. So we've paid specific emphasis to allow for the change to commence and to begin from within. And St. George's University, thank you very much, Mr. President, and Texila University as well, a few weeks prior to St. George's University joining. So we've paid specific attention to having that movement start from within, so that the change we're seeking to inculcate within our thinking and within the documents that get published and within science coming up to decision-making level to inform policy, that it is coming from our children. And they're the ones who will mold what we will leave them as we take it to the next stage. The Global Biodiversity Alliance is going to be focusing on 4 core objectives. One of those has to do with biodiversity conservation. And a lot of that, and Resident Coordinator mentioned some of this in her speech, has to do a lot with incorporating the work of indigenous communities and forest-based communities. We have a lot of young people at the indigenous peoples and local communities level that are leading the way. The South Rupununi Conservation Society, for example, is one of the founding members of the GBA. That is predominantly young people working to shape the solution on what conservation should look like at the community level. And they are showing the Global Biodiversity Alliance in terms of how to take those lessons learned and replicate them and scale them up as well. So we're hoping that the lessons learned and the achievements wouldn't just be achieved by universities or global organizations, but we will also be able to benefit from ground-based knowledge, traditional knowledge. That is one of the key components, biodiversity conservation. A huge part of the Global Biodiversity Alliance is also focused on training and capacity building to inform policy making. And a lot of this really starts with young people. And for that reason, we are engaged with the universities whom have joined the Global Biodiversity Alliance already to advise us on how they could shape or reshape the curriculum within their remit to include not just thinking and science on biodiversity, but also how do we translate that to decision making? How do we make what really is a complex area more accessible and understandable to those who might want to enter into the field? So Minister, thank you for raising that question. And I think, you know, in many ways, when one thinks about these global initiatives, we think about governments working together with each other. And rarely we think about the private sector coming on board, development organizations coming on board, indigenous peoples and local communities coming on board, and academic institutions coming on board. I believe that is one of the things that will set the Global Biodiversity apart and is setting the Global Biodiversity Alliance apart from other alliances.
Development of the global, the biodiversity animated videos for children that will be on the digital school platform, all of those things, so that we can get into the young heads and young minds and find an innovative, fun way of learning about biodiversity and its importance. All of that is part of us. So we're working with the Ministry of Education now on putting biodiversity as part of that curriculum, getting aspects of the LCDS into that curriculum too, from the primary school level. So that's how we work.
Indeed. And having that, you know, be available, and Mr. President, you mentioned the digital school and looking at ways in incorporating this within the curriculum. It's about creating access and creating an excitement, which I believe in this room we feel, but we have to ensure for this to be sustained, our children as well need to feel that to take this forward.